What's going on, Wiz Nation and Mystics Nation? Welcome to another episode of DC Hoopla. I'm your guy, K Jose. Follow me on YouTube if you haven't already at DC Hoopla. Follow me on IG under the same name. And like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So the Washington Mystics lose yesterday, 90-71. And the Washington Mystics are undermanned. They only had a total of 6 bodies. Tina Charles led the team with 26 points. She had 2 boards. But when you look at the Connecticut Sun, I mean, come on, they're fully healthy. They got their players, and they actually dominated the game. Jasmine Thomas, former Mystic, had 21 points. And they're doing this without one of their players, and Alyssa Thomas, who's out with an injury. But the Mystics have Elena Deladon that's out due to injury. She's not scheduled to return until sometime in August. Emma Meeseman is playing for her country overseas. It's kind of a question mark if she's going to return next season. Natasha Cloud is out due to an injury. They're just so undersized. So the Mystics are very easy to scout. They're very easy to play defense against because Tina Charles is the only firepower they have. If you're able to neutralize Atkins, then, hey, that's another way they can win. But with these injuries that the Mystics have, and they're only able to suit up 6 bodies, in my opinion, I thought it was kind of foolish that they released the players that they did. Even if these players wasn't going to bring them anything, just the fact that you released them when you need bodies, I just didn't think that was very smart at all. And that's just my opinion. So when I'm looking at the Washington Mystics, the question I have to ask is this season, do you just go ahead and consider it to be a wash? Maybe the Washington Mystics should just go ahead and wash their hands with the season and just say, you know what, we'll try again next year. Because this season is definitely a disadvantage for us with all these injuries that we have. And we're also playing with less bodies this season. You get a high draft pick, you get yourself another piece, a solid player, because you're going to have to think about the future anyway. With Tina Charles being 32, Elaine about to be 32, I think Natasha Cloud, I think she's knocking on 30. You got to start focusing on the future, which seems to be something that's going on when we talk about these two basketball teams. Now, the Mystics, in my opinion, are much organized and a much functional ran organization than I would say my Washington Wizards are. At least to the Mystics' credit, they did win a championship 2 years ago. I mean, they're just 2 years away just 2 years removed from winning a WNBA championship. The Wizards, on the other hand, are 43 years removed from winning the championship. Big difference. But what these two organizations do have in common is they may need to consider rebuilding or retooling the roster. But I would think for this season, for the Mystics, it would be, in my opinion, wise for them to just go ahead and just wrap the season up, concede this season, and just try to get a high draft pick. Because even with Elena Deladon returning in August, you just don't know where the Mystics are going to be sitting. And with them, with where they're going, with them always lacking bodies, it's very well that they probably will have more losses than wins by the time Elena Deladon returns, by the time Natasha Cloud returns. Of course, saying that they should, tank is not favorable, but in my opinion, it would make probably good sense to do it. They play the Liberty next game, and we're going to see more of the same where, they'll be neutralized, where Tina Charles is going out there putting up her points, and they probably will actually just figure out a way to slow down Ariel Atkins, and Plaisance is now looking like they have already scouted her, that the league has finally figured out how to stop her. When I was looking at her last night, she was actually shooting threes out of rhythm because she was trying to basically play like she did the previous week, and she's not playing within rhythm. And one 3-point shot, it was an air ball. She just literally chucking it. Watching, the Sun was just swarming around the Mystics on defense. But again, it's very easy to do that when you know that they only got 6 bodies that's going to come into the game. So for the Mystics, again, I think it would only make sense that they concede this season and at least try to get themselves a top pick. Then you try it again next year, with a healthy Elena Deladon. You got Tina Charles coming back. You have Natasha Cloud come back healthy. You finally make a decision what's going to happen with, Meesman, if she's going to return or if she's going to decide, hey, she's just going to continue the rest of her career in her homeland. And then you have this young player that you can add into the mix, possibly along with some other roster moves. Maybe you bring in some other solid veterans, and then you can actually run it back. Because this season, I just don't see how they're going to be able to remain competitive when their roster can't even suit up at least 10 healthy bodies. At least 10. So, for the Washington Mystics, hopefully, they'll get it together. But with the injuries, I just look at it like it's better for them to just go ahead and concede the season. So let me go on to the Washington Wizards, and then I will end this episode. So as of yesterday, the Washington Wizards have interviewed Sun Cassell. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that when it comes down to interviewing Sun Cassell. Are they going to actually interview Wes Unseld Jr. as well? Because it seems like now that's where they have their eyes on, either Wes Unseld Jr. or Sun Cassell. When the Washington Wizards, whichever coach comes here, and I had addressed this the last time, what is the plan? One thing I noticed is that when it comes down to what happens as far as the new head coach, and it was an article I was reading yesterday, they talked about Denny Avdia. They talked about Rui Hachimura throughout the whole article, which was okay with me. I have no problem with that. Then maybe towards the end of the article, they talked about Bradley Beal. But when they talked about Bradley Beal, it was more so talking about his potential contract, how much money he can get back in return, saying that he probably won't be able to get as much as he would like with his Supermax, his potential Supermax. So I'm looking at it like, okay, you're saying this because of what? And then they didn't even mention Russell Westbrook throughout the whole article, which was very interesting to me. So here's one thing, since I brought up Westbrook. What I am noticing when it comes down to Westbrook is that whenever the Wizards is being mentioned in articles, I'm noticing Westbrook's name is not being mentioned as much. So I don't know if that means that the Wizards will be open to moving Westbrook, because they really haven't came out and said that they wasn't willing to move Westbrook. I have seen where they are refusing to move Bradley Beal, but I haven't seen I haven't seen from the Washington Wizards where they said they're refusing to move Russell Westbrook. Like a few times, Westbrook's name has been coming up, in rumors, trade rumors, and the Wizards really haven't done anything to shut those rumors down. Especially when you talk about a week ago, when it was running, should I say in social media, when they were talking about the fact that LeBron James and Anthony Davis was following Westbrook's wife on Instagram. Nothing really was said about that. It just kind of went away. Now, people probably look at it like, well, there wasn't really nothing to talk about. But the fact of the matter was, it was trending on social media. So maybe the Wizards are open to listen to offers for Westbrook. But what could you get back in return for Westbrook? You know, he's making $41 million a season. You're probably going to have to take contracts that are not good in return. Since we're talking about the Lakers, that was a team that people were talking about. So they were talking about KCP, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell. But I didn't see no draft picks anywhere in there. And the reason why, because the Lakers have pretty much traded away all their draft capital. So if the Wizards are going to move Westbrook, it would make sense you move Westbrook, but you got to get a damn draft pick in return. Because we just don't seem to do that. You know, I happen to be looking at the 2009-2010 season. And that year, of course, that was a year with the whole gun situation. But during the offseason in 2009, I looked at a trade that just really irritated me about my team. This is one of the things that I don't like about my team. So that year, we had the fifth pick in the draft, in the 2009 draft. That was a famed draft where Blake Griffin was drafted first. That was also the same year that James Harden came in the league. Also the same year where you had a young Steph Curry was in that draft, and you also had Ricky Rubio. That year, we had the fifth pick, and we traded our fifth pick along with Darius Sungala, Eton Thomas, and Alexei Petrov to the Timberwolves for Randy Foye and Mike Miller. Now, if you notice, I didn't even mention a draft pick coming back from Minnesota, which to me was just a bonehead trade because Randy Foye and Mike Miller were only 1-year rentals. So that was just a failed trade. Now, the Timberwolves went on and drafted Ricky Rubio with their fifth pick, and the rest is history. So some people will probably say, hey, you know what? The Wizards saved themselves from making a bad draft pick, by trading it away. Okay, point taken. But what the Wizards didn't save themselves on was getting a draft pick in return from the Timberwolves. You give them the fifth pick in the draft and you don't even get a draft pick in return? Like, that is so Wizards. But anyway, let me go back to the whole coaching thing because I just went way left. So with Sam Cassell being interviewed by the Washington Wizards, what kind of coach would Sam Cassell be for the Washington Wizards? Some people think that that Sam Cassell will probably continue to do what Flip Saunders did and make the players play with the mid-range game. Like Bradley Beal or Rui Hachimura. That will flourish. That will be very good for Rui Hachimura because his mid-range game is on point. Would Sam Cassell be the ideal coach for this roster? I don't know. In my opinion, I would rather Sam Cassell be the coach of this team if he's coaching young players. Because the only reason why his name is even being brought up or why we're even interviewing him is because Bradley Beal is familiar with Sam Cassell because he was here when Bradley Beal was much younger. I just don't know if that's going to be the coach that's going to keep Bradley Beal here, if that's what the Wizards are expecting. Now, I feel that the Wizards should move on from Bradley Beal and just go ahead and push the reboot button. If you're going to bring a Sam Cassell here, you might as well bring him here with the young players that he can actually put his stamp on the team. Don't have him inherit what Scott Brooks left behind. Put a team there that Sam Cassell can put his stamp on. Or better yet, You make moves and let Sam Cassell actually have a voice in what players he would like to have here, instead of basically telling them, here you go, this is what you got. Do the same thing for Wes Unseld Jr. When you bring him in, if he becomes the coach, let Wes Unseld Jr. tell you what team he wants to coach, what his team should look like, instead of you telling him this is who you're going to coach. Again, to make a correlate between the Mystics, the Wizards and the Mystics should definitely start thinking about the future. And the thing is, I know the Mystics are going to do it. But are the Washington Wizards going to do that? So this comes to another end of episode of DC Hoopla. I'll get back on here again. Hopefully, again, I said it in my last one, hopefully we will have our head coach for the Washington Wizards so we can talk about it. But so far, Sam Cassell has interviewed with the Washington Wizards. We just have to see what happens after that. Next time I'll probably come on here, we'll be most likely talking about Wes Unseld Jr. being interviewed. But you guys have a great one.